Thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. My name is Dominic and I work with Amazon's selling partner App Store. As you may know, the App Store is a one-stop shop for sellers to discover and enable more than 2,500 trusted apps that can help you grow and manage your businesses. We are continuing our webinar series today with a presentation from our software partner Wix on growing multi-channel customer relationships. Without further ado, I now give the floor to Wix product expert, Sam.
Hi, Dominic. Thank you so much. And thank you to the entirety of your team for giving us this forum to speak with this audience of people and find out a little bit more about multi-channel customer relationships and what those look like from an e-commerce perspective here in Q4 2022. So just a quick agenda for what we're going to go over today. First and foremost, the e-commerce seller's perspective. I'll talk a little bit more about why I feel I might be qualified to speak on this here in a second. We'll talk about all these different multi-channel customer solutions that Wix is positioned to offer you as a seller. I'll also show you a few real-life use cases that kind of break down what these implementations look like in real life and how they deliver value. And then, of course, what is Wix e-commerce more broadly? It's a very deep tool. We've got a lot of capabilities, so we're going to take a look at that. And also, as a part of that, highlight some key features that makes Wix Stores significant. And then after that, we will, of course, have some time for Q&A. So please do not hesitate to throw your questions in the chat. No ask is too big or too small. We're here for it. So a little bit about me before we get into the meat and potatoes. I've been with Wix since August of 2020. And during that time, I have consulted directly with dozens, if not hundreds of e-commerce users in multiple verticals in pretty much every English-speaking region of the world. So over this course of time, I've had the opportunity to kind of have that deep dive, hands-on business consultant style analysis. And that's a lot of what informs what I'm going to say today about how Wix fits into that customer relationship. A little bit more about Wix as well while we're at it. Wix has 238 million users worldwide. Out of those 238 million, there are currently about 1 million active e-commerce subscriptions on our platform. So we are a pretty significant player in this space and excited for more people to discover what our tool can do. So first and foremost, what does the perspective of an e-commerce seller look like as we get into Q4 2022 selling season? You know what it is. Of course, it's everyone's top of mind with that right now. First and foremost, I think that we realize that shoppers engage in a very long decision-making process. Some people are more impulse buyers, but there's such a wealth of information out there online, social media, YouTube, Amazon reviews, all of these places that customers can look to aggregate information before they make a decision, before they go to make a purchase. That what this has led to is a much longer sales cycle, even in verticals where we don't traditionally expect one. So when we are jumping around and comparing all of our options as a consumer, thinking about what our next step is going to be, a big component of making that next step is trust. 81% of customers who responded to an Ad Age survey said that they would only buy from a brand that they actively trust. How do we build that trust? Where does that trust come from? What is that trust a product of in terms of the steps that we take as a seller to help build our product's profile, to help build that intentionality on the customer's part? I think the other significant factor that we see here when you look at e-commerce or even just commerce in general, more broadly, across verticals, across industries, across regions, what you see is that repeat customers tend to make up a large margin of that business's revenue. Regardless of where in the world we are or what our vertical looks like, it is so much more affordable to build a strong customer relationship and then maintain it, as opposed to always needing to have that funnel wide open and be collecting as many net new people as you possibly can. So the customer experience is really predicated on these three processes: building trust over time, providing a handhold through that decision-making process, that buying decision-making process, and then also having that collateral in place that's going to encourage those customers to become long-term repeat buyers. I see this play out in particular in two types of personas with sellers online more generally. The first kind of component I see here is with people who sell tech. Some of these are very niche products. Some of these are very high tag products, high GMV products. It really depends on what the product is in terms of exactly what the sales cycle looks like. But the general theme that we see is that it's super, super important to have documentation, presentations, tutorials, other collateral that can help increase customer confidence before they go in to actually make that purchase a reality. And this can take many different forms. We can be looking at blog posts, we can be looking at social media posts. You're not restricted to one thing. I think the most important theme here is multimedia, documentation, having that support in place. This continues on the other side of the sale, right? If you've done a good job acquiring a customer pre-sale through having all of these strong multimedia resources, you should be able to continue the customer relationship by doing the same. Maybe you have some kind of discussion board or forum. Maybe you offer a library of documentation that's either written in-house or crowdsourced. And then along with that, you probably have some kind of mass email outreach around things like firmware updates or revisions to the product, upcoming releases, upgrades, upsells. There's so many different ways to look at this. The second vertical where we really see this playing out is around merchants who are really focused on social media. Now, this is a little bit less vertical focused than our tech merchants, of course, but I do still think this represents a pretty solid demographic base of people who are selling online. What I think these merchants tend to be missing is a way to have a landing page, a way to have a central repository of information for everything that someone might want to know about their product, about upcoming releases, and to connect all of these different platforms together. It would be pretty easy for me as a consumer to have an experience that takes place on Amazon that maybe extends into a couple of YouTube videos. Maybe there's a few Google reviews in there. This merchant also has a TikTok account. There's so many different ways that this can play out and so many different directions that sale can come in from, that it's probably useful to have a way to knit all those platforms together and aggregate as much of that content in one place as possible to land you a shorter sales cycle or make that decision-making process as short as possible from the customer's perspective. The other aspect here is around lead capture. When you have a asset that blows up on YouTube or you have a post on TikTok that racks up a whole bunch of views, that's a great temporary spike in traffic. Of course, a lot of traffic to your Amazon page when that happens. But as merchants, we want to be able to extend that halo effect as long as possible. And the best way to do this is through remarketing. The easiest way to remarket to an audience that arrives on your site or on your page from social media is to have some kind of lead capture flow to be able to reach out to them a second time. So this is another place where a lot of merchants are leveraging Wix as a platform to have this sort of turnkey functionality to start building a lead list. There are a couple major solutions that map onto these challenges. How do we address these maybe holes in the customer experience for certain merchants, right? The first thing is that we create social proof. And I'll show you a few examples of this here in a second, but there's so many good ways to publish content that helps drive the intentionality around the purchase, that helps solidify the value proposition in a customer's mind. You can use Wix to publish content above and beyond what would be comfortable in a typical product listing. When you do this, there's so many different gateways, so many different sources of social proof that you can aggregate in one place and kind of present that in a more clean fashion. So for example, we have a few merchants here. On the left, we have a sustainable and bespoke clothing manufacturer in Canada who has chosen to integrate a blog, customer testimonials, and an Instagram feed directly onto her Wix website. And in this way has sort of gathered all of this information about her product in one place and made it a lot easier for her customers to make buying decisions because they're seeing so much content right there. On the right-hand side here, we have a specialty merchant who makes custom-built helmets for bush avionics, for bush pilots who are landing Cessnas on very rocky terrain. Obviously, a very unusual product. Testimonials are very important when you have a user base as esoteric as that. In this case, he's chosen to locate those testimonials on his homepage, and again, help gather some of that information that would otherwise be spread out on a lot of different platforms and maybe not obvious to buyers who are interested in conversion. The next step here is to establish community. This is building on what I said earlier about the intentionality of a good pre-sale and post-sale flow, having as much content there as possible to help increase the consumer confidence. I've seen this play out so many different ways. Sometimes we have a lot of documentation that a merchant just chooses to publish, and that becomes a knowledge base. Other times, they can use the Wix tool to crowdsource some of those insights, gather feedback, and have more of a two-way street, collaborative kind of communication there around their ongoing product support and development. But the overarching theme here is having those educational and technical resources, and then being able to actually market them specifically by customer population, purchase history, other kinds of information that we have about these individual customers. So just an example of this, I do see a lot of merchants choose to establish a forum, establish a content subscription above and beyond selling a physical product. And when they do this, they create two things that are really important. The first thing they create is engagement, because if you build it, they will come with content. People will tend to engage with the site more, the more information there is there, just ask anyone who works on SEO. On the other hand, you can also get revenue. Over and over again, I see merchants choose to monetize their knowledge, specifically around how-tos, product upgrades, all these different things that you can do, especially in the DIY and craft communities. A lot of merchants choose to monetize their knowledge and turn that into a way to double dip and get engagement and revenue in the same interaction with their customers, current and future and former. And then last but certainly not least, how do we get the support and registration flow to the level where we want it to be, to the level where it matches our brand identity, where it matches the level of complexity of our product? So many ways you could slice and dice this, but the general idea is that Wix has a platform that will allow you to publish this information in an easy to view format and manage all of the inbound and outbound communication that you as a merchant would receive and send as a part of establishing this flow, as a part of having that resource on tap. What this looks like in one particular case, I've got a case study I'll talk a little bit more about here in a second, but we have a merchant who has a very technical, very complex product that's aimed at a very niche market. And this merchant has chosen to use both our knowledge-based publishing ability as well as our CRM to manage all of the inbound and outbound communication around this product, where there are a lot of firmware updates, there's a lot of version changes, there's a lot of ongoing product development for this very niche market. And so this is a way to manage that flow and manage that communication. So a couple use case examples that may be illuminating. First and foremost, this will look a little familiar because we just had a screenshot on the previous slide from Triple Tech. Triple Tech is a manufacturer who makes tablets that are often used by drone pilots who are shooting video or stills on a drone. They're outdoors during the day. One of the major issues with piloting a drone is, of course, having a screen that's bright enough to serve as your viewfinder for the drone when you are outside in broad daylight. Try that with your iPad. I don't recommend it. It's a little tricky. So the Triple Tech 8 Pro comes in and provides a lot of that functionality that you would have in a regular tablet, with the additional benefit of having a very, very, very bright, high-resolution screen, which is something that these creators really need. They have an Amazon seller account. Of course, they have Amazon listings for the Triple Tech 8 Pro, but they also have a Wix website. And through this website, they've chosen to extend the customer journey a little bit, extend the support resources that they're able to offer by publishing resources around upgrades, manuals, support flows, connecting in their social media channels, and providing a registration flow. Over the course of offering all these resources, they've now established a battery of about 7,000 contacts that they can reach out to in the future. Again, current customers, maybe prospective buyers who are interested in the product that they can reach out to on an ongoing basis, which provides a lot of value for them and a great way to continue their journey of product development. So what does this look like in real life? I've put the Amazon listing for the Triple Tech 8 Pro and the Wix website for the TripleTech 8 Pro side by side on this page, and they harmonize really well together. I think that the Wix website is a great way to just extend those most important features into an easy to read format, but then to even go a little bit deeper and have a registration flow, have a comprehensive breakdown of their prior product offerings, and then as well to have this knowledge base article that comprehensively lists out over 70 articles dealing with exactly how the system works, how it connects with all of these drones that these creatives are piloting, and all the other tech support resources that you need for a product with a very high density of technology or a very specific use case, as we do have with the TripleTech 8 Pro. Let's zoom out a little bit for a second. What is Wix e-commerce really? Wix e-commerce at its core is a way to easily build fully customizable e-commerce websites and have as much design control as you want to present whatever kind of customer experience you'd like to create. On the back end, above and beyond the website builder, we also have a complete suite of email marketing, SMS marketing, and other tools to help support e-commerce growth over the long-term period of time, to have an increase in customer lifetime value, and to handle those day-to-day functions around things like email replies, CRM, marketing blasts, all that good stuff. But then we do also have some more advanced tools built in as well around SEO and design to create that totally custom, agency level custom built experience. A few examples of what our e-commerce sites look like. We do have a plant site here, nice design. Everything's very harmonized visually. All the fonts are harmonized. We, of course, have a mobile experience as well that goes along with our desktop experience. So we're not confined to one or the other. We have equal amounts of design control on both. And what I see over and over again is merchants taking that next step to make the visual experience of their product extend onto their website, which is really exciting for a number of reasons. First of all, it makes the product offering look more high-end. I don't think any consumer is ever going to balk at a very high-end experience that looks very unified. But second of all, I think it presents a powerful way for them to reach new markets, to look good on social media, to engage in all these other processes that really build value for the brand and value for the store over the long term. And just another example here, I love this chocolate store because in this store, the merchant has chosen to extend the design present on their product packaging right onto the website, and the two harmonize with each other in a visually coherent environment that looks very exciting, very high-end, and is exactly the kind of impression that we would want to leave a consumer of this kind of good with. So having that additional design flexibility really opens doors to get across your brand's personality in a way that maybe social media is not the best fit for. And this is a great way to make that possible. A couple other key Wix Stores features that, when integrated with an Amazon shop, would work sort of in concert together to help, again, improve that customer experience and also improve your seller level understanding of what's going on in the background. We do have a whole analytics and insights panel that is natively built into Wix Stores. Using this analytics and insights tab, you can look at traffic, you can look at visitor behavior, you can look at conversion data. The sky's the limit, but we do also have some reports that are automatically generated that are designed to focus on very particular questions. For example, around things like inventory planning, around things like where our traffic by entry page is coming from. These other things that you would want to know when analyzing, hey, what does that customer journey look like for me in my store? And how can I improve it? How can I move the ball down the field with that? The other aspect of this, as I alluded to earlier, is built-in SEO setup tools. I think SEO is still one of those dark arts that many sellers are probably not comfortable looking at or comfortable handling on their own. Wix has a wizard built in specifically for this process to help the site rank as best as it possibly can in all the relevant SERPs. We are able to use advanced tools like JSON, structured data, customize our page URLs. And while we do have all of this secret ninja wizardry happening in the background, we also have good old-fashioned email marketing and integrations with a lot of great third parties, such as Amazon, that help us drive that value and drive that audience engagement. One other thing I think it's significant to mention, we are active in over 180 languages. When we translate, we also optimize for SEO at the same time. We are able to reach customers in pretty much every territory in the world. We're very proud of the ability to convert currencies and convert languages very easily. So it could be a very useful tool to have if you find that your customer base is really spread out all over the world, as most merchants currently are discovering this. And then last but certainly not least, just a quick word on the Amazon sales channel itself, which is, of course, how we find ourselves here today. The Amazon sales channel itself, first and foremost, it's an administrative integration. When you connect existing Amazon product listings to a Wix store, what you're able to do is synchronize inventory and synchronize some certain administrative tools across the two platforms. So for example, when we have a Amazon listing and a Wix listing, we can do things like set separate pricing. We can administrate fulfillment by Amazon natively through that integration. We can also put things on sale. We can control gift wrap options. The overarching idea here, though, is we want to make inventory reporting in particular as simple as possible, so that we're never overselling, we're never overpromising what our customers can receive in short order and standard fulfillment times from our store. And this sales channel integration really helps us bridge that gap and make sure that no matter what that customer journey looks like, whether we're coming over from TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, wherever we're coming from, we're never overselling our inventory regardless of how those sales are made. It's an exciting administrative tool. It makes that multi-channel e-commerce experience a lot easier to achieve without a whole lot more administrative work or hustle on the back end to make that possible. So that is the body of the presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for this opportunity. And please, I'd love to hear some questions in the chat.
Thank you so much, Sam. This was a really fruitful presentation. It was fascinating to hear your thoughts on growing multi-channel relationships through Wix. We'll go ahead and get started with some of the submitted questions. Can Wix be used to build a mobile e-commerce site?
Oh, yeah, it definitely can. Great question. We actually have two options with this. The first is a native mobile tool that's actually part of our site editor. So when you build a site on Wix, you've got that mobile tool right next door, and you can actually transpose your main site design onto a mobile site and then tweak that mobile experience to your heart's content. But we actually relatively recently launched a mobile app builder as well, which again kind of extends the user experience that you've already established on your full native e-com site into a downloadable app that's going to be available on the Google, the Android and Apple App Store as well. So a couple different options there.
Great, thank you. I have a question here from Terry. Can you run multiple stores on one account?
The answer is yes, you can. The clarifying point I'd make there is that when you switch on the e-commerce functionality on a site, it becomes what we call a premium site. And each one of those sites would need to be premium, so to speak, in order to handle that e-commerce traffic. So you could have one account that administrates as many separate e-com sites as you would like. However, each one of those sites would need to be subject to a premium subscription.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long does it take to build like a basic informational site?
So one of the things about Wix, even though we do have dozens and dozens of really useful templates, even though we do have this virtually unlimited feature set of editing capabilities for website building, we do provide a flow when a user first gets started to allow them access to templates that are so comprehensively built out that honestly, once you've replaced the placeholder text, you're probably in business. I would say you could have a serviceable informational site built in 2 or 3 hours, starting from zero.
I have built a site on Wix in the past, and I can attest to that. There's a question here, if you plan to integrate with Buy with Prime, or if Wix has any connection there.
Great question. We are constantly in the process of adding new payment flows. That is one of our ongoing focuses as an e-commerce platform. We don't currently have an integration with Buy with Prime, but I would be surprised if that was not something that we're exploring for a future release. So more to come on that in the future.
I have a question here as well. How can I make use of some of the more advanced design options that Wix offers?
So above and beyond the templates, which you can get started with, play around with, they're perfectly serviceable on their own, but you can customize them to your heart's content. Above and beyond that, we do also have our own coding language, which we call Velo, which unlocks the ability to write totally custom code for behavior on every site. We also do have a lot of other visual templates for sites in terms of side-scrolling effects, things like that are kind of built in. But if you get all the way to the end of the template, you get all the way to the end of the built-in animations, features, forms, things like that, we do have the ability to actually just dive right in there directly into the code and make custom alterations.
There's a question here as well about if you need a designer or web developer to effectively integrate a Wix site.
I'm confident in saying that the answer to that question is no. The Wix platform is very, very easy to use. We provide a lot of documentation around every step of the process that you'd go through, establishing a site, perhaps beginning with a template, filling in the information that you would need to go there, configuring some options on the back end, and then actually switching on the Amazon integration itself. There are so many resources out there, and the process itself is really not that difficult. In my opinion, as someone who is not a coder or a developer at all by trade, I would feel very comfortable establishing an Amazon integration with a Wix site.
Wonderful. Is there a tool to load our existing Amazon product listings to Wix Commerce?
So yes. The answer to that question is yes. What you're doing is essentially establishing a connection between Amazon listings that you already have on the platform and listings that you've created in a Wix store. It's not an automatic process. So it's not as though you will sort of one-click populate from one platform to the other. It's not quite that simple. That being said, if your product listings are already there, your account on Amazon is already ready to go and active and selling and all that good stuff, it's a pretty light lift, I would say, to duplicate those listings using the same collateral, the same copy, the same images, those other assets. It's a very light lift to move that over onto Wix and then have those two platforms linked together in terms of inventory and reporting.
There's a question here. How should I think about which information or images to put on Amazon versus Wix about my products?
Great question. I think that it comes down to the experience. I think it comes down to the buyer experience. I think that Wix as a platform lends itself to content that is probably a little bit too long to fit comfortably into an Amazon listing. Perhaps there's additional kinds of assets that you want to publish there that just, again, don't really fit into that format. So I think it's ultimately a question of user experience. I have seen some really, really, really long product titles on Amazon before. Maybe some of that information would have been better warehoused elsewhere. That presents an opportunity, I think, to kind of extend that info. But I would say I think of a good Amazon product listing as typically being pretty short and to the point. And a good Wix support website would probably contain all of that deeper, more layered information that just doesn't fit conveniently or elegantly into a product listing.
What sorts of tools are available for customers to chat with the seller via Wix?
Oh, several. Depending on how you want that flow to look. You use the word chat, so I'll start with chat. We actually chat widget that you can populate on your site. And you can configure it in a number of different ways, but generally speaking, it would be a useful way to either interact in live fashion or in a time-delayed fashion with potential customers directly on the site. We also have a number of lead capture flows. When I talk about lead capture, I talk about things like drop us, fill out this form, and we'll be in touch. There's also the ability to publish like a more of a forum style page where you could have threads and replies and be able to reply that way. And then of course, there is the old school email that you publish on the website. People send their questions, comments, concerns to that email. And then that of course populates in our CRM view where you can see their purchase history and the other sort of relevant information about the customer in line with their reply. So there's a few different ways that customer support flow could work.
May I transfer my reviews from Amazon listing to a Wix page?
Let me clarify a little bit on the word transfer. We have a lot of different content publishing tools. We have image galleries. We have all kinds of rich text and image-based containers, essentially. If you wanted to publish testimonial style resources on a Wix website, I don't believe there's anything stopping you from doing so. I would probably want to have a dialogue with that customer before I permanently publish something somewhere else. But that being said, there are a lot of ways in which that information can be published elegantly or aggregated on a Wix site.
Wonderful, thank you. Got a question here from Ali, and just kind of about Wix traffic and Amazon listing. Like when you think about maybe SEO or traffic that you're getting to your Wix page and how that translates to traffic that you're getting to your Amazon listing, do you have any best practices about how one can feed the other, so to speak?
Yeah, I think ultimately the recurring theme I see across verticals and across regions over and over again is just having good content. And I know that sounds very guru, very high level, maybe a little bit ridiculous, but I've discovered that in 9 times out of 10, the reasons that merchants aren't able to convert as much as they would like, or they aren't able to draw in the kind of customer engagement that they need to really see success, 9 times out of 10, it's because they simply haven't said enough or published enough about what their product is, how it directs towards their target market, and what differentiates it in the market from other products. And I think that you see that trend over and over again on Amazon listings. You see that trend over and over again on other platforms as well, kind of all over the web. Over and over again, it's the merchants who publish the most, who have the most success with traffic. When we look at the most powerful search engines or most relevant search engines out there, over and over again, we see that they use the amount of time spent on a site to rank its importance in the online ecosystem. Therefore, the more content you publish, the better your listing will rank, regardless of what search engine you are subject to in that situation. It really is a question of content. Content is king, and I think that's ultimately what drives that traffic and that engagement over time.
Thank you. Is it easy for a beginner who has no coding or web designing experience to create a good Wix website easily?
It is so easy. I mean, I know when someone approaches you and says, "Oh, don't worry, it's so easy." I mean, it sounds ridiculous on its face, but I'll give you an example. When we have people who are using Wix for the first time, they're joining the company, they're coming on board, one of our first tasks is to design a Wix website. And having arrived at the company, some of us with absolutely no experience in web design ever before, most of those employees have a perfectly good site ready to go in 5 hours or less. So it's a very easy process, and there's so many useful templates that it becomes more a question of what your content is and what your images look like, what kind of text you want to publish, than having to worry so much about just the structure of the site, because so much of that is done for you.
Wonderful, thank you. We're wrapping up the end of the question and answer session. Thank you everyone so much for your thoughtful questions. I'd like to extend a sincere thanks to Sam for presenting today, sharing his expertise about how to build customer relationships across multiple channels and how Wix is able to accomplish that.